Medicine Show was on A&M. How did you guys? How did A&M come into your orbit? And how'd you end up on A&M?
Well, this gets the Sandy Pearlman part of the story. When we did that U2 tour, and with the momentum things kept getting better, and things kept happening rapidly. It was kind of heady experience for better and worse, because we were pretty young to be dealing with all that kind of stuff, But things were happening. We were on this U2 tour, and let's just say, without naming names, our tour manager, very good guy, was also I think his day job was dealing speed, and we partook a little bit at the time, kept us on the road, but he went on the U2 tour with us, and after the first show, kind of had a meltdown in New York, and said, I'm not going any further. I'm locked himself in the hotel.
Wait, how could that be? The guy's doing speed nonstop and he had a meltdown?
Yeah, exactly.
I find that hard to believe.
So, and I think he did that first U2 show. It was in New Haven. And I think he just went, I think maybe he might have thought, this is maybe a little more than I signed off. Because it was big. It wasn't playing club lingerie anymore. It's something you're playing, this big machinery, and you got to know how to deal with these people. So he said, I'm out of here. Well, all of a sudden we don't, I should mention, he was our tour manager and also our sound man. So we didn't have a sound man all of a sudden now. We couldn't, and so we got to scramble. Well, our manager at the time, he said, I'm friends with Sandy Pearlman, and he's coming to the show anyway at the Capitol Theater in Passaic. He can probably mix your sound. And now you know this. Normally, recording engineers don't do live sound, and live engineers don't do recording. But Sandy soldiered through and mixed our sound that night. And I knew.
Let me get this straight. He just walked in cold and did front of house?
Yes, he did.
Wow. God bless.
At the Capitol Theater for a band. He knew of us, actually. I found out later he was aware of the Dream Syndicate, liked our music, and he said, sure, I can do that. Turn up the guitars and whatever else. I knew who Sandy was, because I loved not just give him enough rope, but the Dictators were a band I just loved. So, it was great. Fantastic,
and the Blue Oyster Cult and the Blue Oyster Cult stuff, which
I was not a big fan of them, actually. Carl was, though, but I was more of a Dictators Clash guy. But whatever, we were both like, great. We were all happy to have Sandy. Then we met him, nice guy. So let's file that away. So Sandy Pearlman saved our bacon. We got another tour manager, sound engineer to finish the tour with us. We ended up being okay. As things were moving along, when you're a band getting the kind of press we're getting, and getting the hip band on the block kind of thing, and touring with U2, who's really taking off, people pay attention. Now, around this time, we loved being on Slash. I was a big fan of the staff. They're great people who worked so hard for us. But the person who was the general manager of the label was, let's say, not the nicest guy, a little bit of a heavy-handed guy. And he said, we want you to sign right now a 7-record deal with us, or we will put out your next record and kill it. He said that. He said, we'll put out your next record and bury it unless you sign a 7-record deal. I said, we thought you were our friends. We thought you were cool. It was very hurtful. And we're not ready to sign a long-term deal like that. Well, around the same time, other labels were sniffing around, and A&M, Geffen, and EMI all really wanted to have the band on their label. And we said, you know what? If you're going to threaten us that way, we're going to walk. And we did. And
you could walk?
Well, we couldn't because it was a 2-record deal, but all 3 of those labels said, if you want to be on our label, we will buy you out of that deal. So we knew we could do that. We knew, it's ridiculous to think now that it was a thing where money is no object. Well, we were the band at that moment where these labels said, whatever it takes, we will do it. And they made him an offer they couldn't refuse, basically.
Wow.
And we were out of Slash and chose A&M. And they were the label that seemed like of the 3, the best one, because they were, in my mind, they were a label that was run by a musician, Herb Albert.
Well, Herb Albert, right?
And there's something very artistic about the label.
That's what the reputation that label always had. It was an artist-driven label, that cared. It wasn't a MC. It wasn't, what am I thinking of? MCA. It was.
Oh,
Yep.
it was for real, for real. I mean, they were based on the old Charlie Chaplin sound lot on La Brea and Sunset. And if you walked on the lot, you'd see that there's
I
some of the
know it
seats on
well.
La Brea.
I
So you
know it
walked on the
well.
lot, it wasn't a big corporate building. It wasn't a skyscraper. It was little bungalows where people just hanging out. It was
Uh,
amazing.
uh,
It was a great vibe.
Later on, I think Jim Henson owned it, and then it became
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then it became a recording studio again.
Hey,
And I
hey,
spent a lot of time there in the
Jim
90s.
Henson, Jim Henson. I'm drinking out my Muppets coffee cup
Yeah.
right now, as a matter of fact.
Fantastic.
There you go.
Fantastic. Was there,
Yes,
did you,
so they're the way we want to be with it. It made sense for us.
yeah. Um, was this the lineup at the time?
No,
No,
that's a little bit later. So the lineup
a
at the
little bit
time,
late. Mhm,
that's Dennis on the left, me looking
mhm,
sinister there, Carl on
mhm.
the right. That's Mark Walden. We'll get to him. That's our current bass player right now. But
Right,
we actually are filling kind of like, quick. We need a bass player. Fill in for the U2 tour was a guy named Dave Provost who had been in the Droogs and a band called the Textones, kind of known on the LA scene.
right.
Great bass player, still around. Great guy, great bass player. Learned enough to join the U2 tour. Did another tour with us, and that's the guy we brought in the studio. And, he was the guy. So it was early lamp that is not. It was not photographed very much, and that's why I think there's maybe one photo in the box set of the reissue. But he
Sure.
was sort of the invisible member, only for about six. He was only in the band for about 6 months.
Must have
But
been
we
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Drew. What were you saying?
Must have been an exciting time to sign with A&M and coming off the U2 tour. And I mean, this is leading into a big REM tour. Must have been a really exciting time for the band, correct?
Yes and no. Of course, it was exciting because it was almost as the Dolls would say, too much too soon. I think
Yeah,
it was
sure.
kind of like looking back on it now. I think I almost wish things would have happened more slowly because there's so much.
Sure.
Couldn't I don't even remember the feeling of this is wonderful, or this is exciting, or high fiving each other, which we never would have done anyway. But
Yeah, yeah.
there was never that feeling. It was more like, well, just one foot in front of the other because it's happening, and that's how we ended up with Sandy. Now, being on I think if we would have gone with one of the other labels, they probably would have told us you're going to work with this producer, do it this way.
Sure.
A&M was such a righteous label, almost to a fault. Weirdly to say, they just let us do whatever we wanted to, and we said, well, they said, who do you want to produce your record? And we said, well, Sandy Pearlman likes us. He's nice. We worked with him, and we know his stuff. And they said, okay, that's your guy, and that was
Well,
that. And they pretty much said
Sandy Berman likes us, and he did give him enough rope, right?
he was a known figure enough for them,
Sure.
and he was the only guy we could think. And we went, oh God, Go Girl Crazy sounds great. Give Enough Rope sounds great. The Blue Oyster Cult, he likes us. He knows us. We hit it off with him. That's our guy. They said, okay. They said, go make a record. We'll pay the bills. And they really did not do any bit of oversight with us at all. They just said, you're the Dream Syndicate. Go be the Dream Syndicate, which was, you could say, is exciting and wonderful. It was maybe a little too much freedom for us. We didn't
Yeah,
know what to do with that.
I understand. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Before we get into the actual making of the record, um, I I quote from your book, which I really enjoyed. I quote. At the time, I did not know the concept of recoupable expenses. I just thought the label pays for stuff, and we gratefully accept their generosity free of charge. And I chuckled at that because I've been there when I was managing
Oh,
bands, and we thought like all that. Oh, you're giving us like all this merch
yeah.
and the tour van and
Yeah.
the music video. Like that's really wow. What a cool record label.
You must like us so much. You must really love us.
God.
Thank you. I'll send you a thank you card next week.
Oh God, I
Yeah.
love that
No,
record label. They're so good
we
to
didn't know
us.
it. They're so good to us. They must really love us. And they did. I mean, in all fairness, I have nothing but good things to say about A&M. They were so supportive of the band, and they actually were encouraging of us being who we were. They just said, whatever
Mm.
you want to do, just do it. Unfortunately, and Sandy Pearlman is no longer with us, and I in the book I take him to task on a lot of things, but I take myself to task, and I take my
Yeah,
bandmates to task.
you
Because
play
over
it
time,
you play it
the
you
Sandy
play it down the line.
Yeah, but Sandy had a reputation, well deserved, and this will be verified and vouched for by Andy Chernoff of Dictators, who's become a friend of mine, and Albert Bouchard of Blue Oyster Cult has become a friend of mine, and from interviews I've read with Mick Jones as well. Sandy took forever in the studio. Sandy believed in doing things over and over and over and over until, hey, look at that, there, I can see all that. Sandy was into doing takes over and over, and I think he believed that by almost like a Stockholm syndrome thing, like by beating you down, you would get to some kind of honest truth, which did happen. That's why the record sounds the way it does. But it was miserable to make because we just were, what are you doing to us? We spent, after making the Days of Wine and Roses in 3 days, this record took 5 months, and we couldn't figure out why. How can that even be possible? And Sandy, it was his way of doing stuff, and A&M being kind of supportive of what we were doing, never said, hey, is something wrong there? They said, they kept paying the bills, and it was a grueling experience that ended with a record I ended up liking, but I didn't like how I got there.
Yeah, I mean, just doing my homework, and I have it in my notes in caps. Hard record to make.
Hard record to make.
Hard record to make.
And the process of that, I was a bit of a drinker going in. I became a very heavy drinker throughout that session due to boredom and frustration, and it drove me and Carl apart. That process kind of pushed a wedge between two very good friends who were very much on the same page, and exposed a difference between us. Because Carl's response to the success we were having, and it's a very reasonable response, was, look at what's happening. Let's go for it. Let's go for the brass ring. Let's make a hit record. Sure. No, I can't knock him for that. He wanted to make a big rock record. My response was, now we can finally make the weird record I've always wanted to make. I love records like Big Star Third and like Tonight's the Night by Neil Young. And I was a fan of every band's weird record.
Right.
Buzzcocks, a different kind of tension. The Who by Numbers. Every band had that one very emotional, broken record. And I immediately wanted to make that record. That didn't jive with Carl wanting to make a record that get played on the radio. And that difference between us was made more apparent with every day in the studio. By the time the record was done, we had made a record that, weirdly enough, satisfied him because it was a big rock record, and satisfied me because it was a freaking weird record, but we were no longer friends.
I guess it kind of goes back to, like you said, if you had like a hands-on active A&R guy that was involved in the whole process, probably would have been steered a little bit, had a little more steerage to it, right?
I think you're right. And also, bear in mind, I mentioned we made the record in San Francisco because that's where Sandy did all his work. So we were.
Where was that? Wally Hiders?
No, the Automat.
Oh, the Automat, right?
Where he did a lot of most of his stuff there. I think given enough rope was made there as well. And so we were away from all our friends and away from all of our family and away from our favorite record stores and favorite bookstores and favorite this and that. And so we were sort of isolated out there, Sister Lovers. Yes, that's of course the original name of the record, but we were away from things we knew, so there was no touchstone. There was nothing to say, do you guys really want to be doing that, or could you find some way to, there wasn't group therapy like in that Metallica movie. We couldn't sit down and we just kind of had to soldier through it.
Well, and didn't, after that sort of trudging that hard road, didn't you go right out with REM after that?
We did. So we finished the record, and like I say on the one hand, because here we are talking about a reissue of the record, and a record that I'm touring behind right now. I'm playing live every night. The end result is we all love the record. I love the record. I thought we'd done something really special, and it was received well. And once it came out, A&M supported it fully. There it is, Medicine Show. That's the new version.
That's the new version. Yeah,
it's like a 4 CD expanded version of the record remastered. And with one thing I'll say about the box set, just stepping out of to the time sequences. Pat Thomas, who is our friend, sort of A&R guy, quasi manager. This box set is his labor of love, and what he did with this box set, there's a lot of live material and rehearsal material.
Yeah.
From the time between Days of Wine, Roses and Medicine Show that shows how he progresses the band. And
Kendra plays on some of it, right?
Some of it. Kendra's on some of it.
Yep.
There's a live show from CBGB's right after we had first got a new bass player. So it was so the rough journey was worth it because we ended up with that. Thank you, Long Brain. We ended up with a record that we quite liked, and we're excited to go out and support. Even if we were no longer the best of friends, we were happy to go out on the road and support it. And I had met Peter Buck in the course of making this record when REM played San Francisco, and we hit it off immediately. And I thought that's, they just put out their second record, Reckoning, on IRS, who was kind of a subsidiary of A&M. So it was a natural combo. And we went on tour for 8 weeks with REM. Like, wow, perfect. Now, when it came time, this is deja vu after the U2 thing where Kendrick quits a week before that tour. We get the tour with REM, and Dave Provost quits the band a week before the tour. Like, you got to be kidding me. This is what is it with us and bass players? And so we got this big tour, and Carl said, "Well, I know this guy. His name is Mark Walden. He's a nice guy. He learns fast. I can call him up." I said, "Great." And Mark was in the band, and that the picture you showed is Mark joined the band, learned the songs, and got in the tour bus, and off he went with REM. And we still playing together to this day. I mean, the three guys on the left, Dennis, me, and Mark, just played San Diego 3 nights ago. We're still the core of the band with Jason Victor replacing Carl. But we were out with REM doing this thing every night, and there's a live recording from that tour that's on this box set. And we were a very different band than we had been the year before, and it's very different from REM, but their audience liked us, so it was great.
Is that the Chicago concert, 1984?
Yes.
WXR. Yeah. Yeah.
XRT broadcast.
Yeah.
From a really great night. We played our show with REM. Typical 8 o'clock show being what do you call it? It wasn't an arena, theater, whatever theater, I guess you'd say. So earlier show, REM's show that night ended up as a live record. Ours was a live record, and then after the show was over, we immediately, the two bands, all the members of REM and the Dream Syndicate, took off to the Cubby Bear downtown, where the Replacements were playing with the Del Fuegos opening. This is like, in my mind, it's like one of the best rock and roll nights ever. Like,
sure.
This is just like, and we were there watching these two great bands, Replacements, Del Fuegos, and we felt like we were the Beatles and the Stones. So we were like, we were
that's great.
Brian Jones and John Lennon showing up. And I say this with tongue in cheek, but it just felt
of course.
But we were riding high and checking out these two bands who were, Replacements and Del Fuegos, two great bands.
Del Fuegos were a fun band.
They were a really fun band.
I saw them very early on. I went to Emerson College in Boston in 1981 to study acting, and I was up there early on, and I saw the Del Fuegos and the Neighborhoods and the Outlets, and a lot of those bands were great. In addition to all the hardcore stuff I get into, but those bands were around. Another some other of the live stuff, which is really interesting on the box set, is stuff recorded at CBGB's.
So there's a show from maybe spring of '83 between our first and second album from CB's, and we did 2 nights there. And I didn't even know that existed.
That's what I was getting at. Like, did you know all this stuff was out there?
No. Pat, who put this together, went hunting around for any documents he could find, and he found this live recording. Now, Drew, because you've spent many nights at CBGB's, I'm sure, that besides being kind of a funky little place to say the least, they had the best sound system in town. I mean, it was the best sounding club, and you could walk out of CB's with an amazing cassette of the show you just played. You sound like a record. There it is.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Empty, but that's it.
The backstage right behind that wall where you could feel the vibration of every band that was playing. And the display went down the stairs of like, oh my God, you'd catch whatever typhoid might be raging around. But it was, besides a historic place, history not being lost on us, it also was a great sounding room. And this recording we have on the box set sounds fantastic. And I just had no idea it was floating around.
Here is, I think this might be a couple years later, but this certainly speaks to vernacular here. Here you go. That's the soundboard at CB's.
Oh, wow, that's great.
There it is. You know.
What is going on back there? What kind of gear is? It looks like they got an Atari game back there.
Yeah, it looks like one of the very. I think this is like 1990 or 91 maybe.
Yeah,
So it's a
yeah.
little bit later, but this was basically what was going on. And yeah, CBGB's was notorious for.
I remember that bench. I remember that bench by the soundboard. I lounged on that bench many nights.
Yeah, right. So the record comes out. You tour. Things things kind of play out. You do the live. This is not the new Dream Syndicate album live, which is on A&M as well. And then you leave the label after that. And what I'm getting is, I know that getting this box set done was a long, hard road. How did you get the material back to be able to release it all these years later?
Oh my! Yeah. By the way, Christopher Valdez says the Replacements Cubby Bear show is getting released. I had no idea. That's great, because
Is that
really
right?
wasn't. Yeah,
This month.
I'm really happy to see that. I can't wait to hear that. I was there. That was a fun night. I got to talk to my buddies about that. I just saw Mike Mills last night. I'll tell him that show. Anyway, yeah. So we.
What was that? What was that? What was that like?
That show or
no. How did you get the music back after all these years?
Well, it did come out. We Carl and I split apart. We stayed on A&M for a little while longer, and they just wanted us to make demo after demo, and they were nice, but they're kind of like, we just want to make a record and get back on the road, and we amicably split. They just let us go, and actually gave us money to go away. It's like, yay, that's great. But unfortunately, over time, the record went out of print because A&M got swallowed up by, this company, that company, eventually owned by a beer company, Bertelsmann. I mean, A&M was no longer a music. They were just a holding company for people money. And the sad thing was the record went out of print, which broke my heart. And for the longest time, I tried to get it back. I approached them. I, was at various points had pretty high-powered managers who I was sick on them. And my thing was always, I don't care if I get it back. I don't care if I get any money. I don't care if I screw myself over. I just want it out there. And it wasn't working. They wouldn't reissue it. They wouldn't give it back. And I'm just like, oh my God. Well, finally about 7-8 years ago, goodbye A&M, I know. Finally, about 7 years ago, a legal team, well, I'll backtrack a little bit, and you probably know about this. There has been, and lately more enforced, a 35-year reversion law, where after 35 years, you get your records back. It's the law. Labels have to abide by it. Boom, give it back. In 2019, Medicine Show turned 35, and we said, "Thank you very much. We'll take that back and go to have a ball." And A&M's, or not A&M, but whatever they were, UMG, Universal.
Yeah, Universal. The heinous Universal Music Group.
I'm sorry, but I gotta agree with that, because they, as much as I love A&M, I did not love Universal. Basically said, not just to the Dream Syndicate, but to a lot of other bands, the Dickies among them, and then the Dickies and a bunch of bands. They said, no, we don't abide by this. We're not going to do it. Sorry. And so there was a giant class action lawsuit that spanned the pandemic. It was all happening during the pandemic. Wow. And I mean, this was like a lot. I was brought in. They kind of embraced me as one of the star witnesses, I guess, because I could talk a good game. They brought me to this office in Midtown Manhattan, like one of those 54th and 50th floor kind of place, and they put me on a screen for 4 hours, and they coached me. It was insane. I mean, you came. Here we go. Make sure you file on time. That's right, Thomas, because it's not automatic. You've got to have people to help you. And
and then, like you said, they can still fight it.
They can still fight it. So we have had help, like Thomas says, who we've had people like thanks to Dan Perloff and Evan Stone, people who would guide us through. Well, this lawsuit went on for 5 years, and finally 2 years ago, it was settled, and it was basically a huge settlement. I don't know how much, maybe nearly $1 million. I don't even know the final thing, but the shot is, we got, of all that money, we got $10,000. That's very nice. And the record. So that was the main thing. We got the record. I said, oh, thank God. And part of the stipulation, boy, I rarely talk too much about music biz, but it does fit the story here. But
That's good.
part of the stipulation was it had to be on my label. Like they said, you can't go sell this to another label. I don't know why that was part of the deal, but that's how it went. I said, fine. I had a label back then called Down There. Down There, we'll put it out, and I did. And we are on for our newer records. So we've made 4 albums in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Our more recent catalog has been, well, first on Anti and now on Fire Records out of the UK. So Fire signed on as the distributor for Down There, which is kind of funny, but they were happy to do it. So it is a Down There record, and
yeah,
it's a beautiful full circle kind of thing. And we got it back, and it's our record now, and it's such a tangled thing. But the bonus tracks for the box set are streaming, but the original record is not, because they would not let us do that.
Is that
So
right?
if you want to hear the actual medicine show, you got to buy the CD or the LP or the digital download. I'm sorry, folks, but if you want to hear this record that means so much to us, you got to go through the process on our Bandcamp page, or however you want to do it.
So in doing my homework, I'm going to Spotify. I'm trying to find. I'm finding the record, but I'm not finding the studio tracks, and I'm like really confused. So I reached out to your PR guy that hooked us up, who's been really great. He's fantastic. Josh Mills, fantastic. Really great guy. Really doing good work. And he sent me the tracks so I could listen to them, and I've been listening to them nonstop. But yeah, really interesting how they wouldn't let you put it up for streaming, but everything else on the box set is up.
Yeah, we're working on that. Hopefully, we'll get to change it. In the meantime, I've seen a few people online grouse about, hey, I can't stream the record. I said, you know what? We spent 5 months making it, made ourselves crazy, spent 30 years getting it back, sat in legal things. Go buy the damn record.
Sure, right.
Come to a show, and we'll sign them for you. It's like, I am very. Everybody who knows me knows I am completely fan driven. I'm all about people who like my music getting a good deal, getting the music, playing the best shows I can, making the best records I can, making sure they get treated well at the shows. That's always been a big deal to me. But at the same time, I was like, well, you know what? Get the record. It's a good record, or come see us live and hear it live. And it's been good. People very, very supportive, and I can't believe we got this record back. It amazes me this even happened.
The art has been liberated.
I
mean, and that's really where it's at. That is just it's in the hands, and it's out there for people that love it to listen to it and cherish it. And that's the most important thing.